There is a question I keep thinking about every Independence Day. We talk about Independence Day as if it was something that happened on a specific day. A flag goes up, everybody is celebrating, the whole country it became independent. And a new chapter begins. But what about the person standing underneath the flag? To the woman afraid of losing her home, to the family suddenly unsure if their neighbor is actually still their neighbor. What happens when the people you have eaten with, prayed with, celebrated with, the same people you have known for years, they become something else in your mind? It's not because they have changed, it's because fear made you change the way you look at them. So, on the occasion of this Independence Day, I want to ask, what does freedom actually mean if the fear can still make us the prisoner of identities we inherit? Jai Hind, everyone. I'm Nikhil. And on the occasion of this auspicious Independence Day, let's talk about the train to Pakistan. As we all know, India became independent on 15th August 1947. But for millions, independence arrived alongside displacement and fear. When we look back at that moment, we tend to see the large things: the leaders, the speeches, the borders, the maps, the flags. But history does not happen to maps, it happens to people. Mr. Khushwant Singh takes us to one such place, a small border village called Mano Majra. Sikhs and Muslims have lived alongside one another there for generations. They are not presented as some perfect community where everyone agrees with everyone. They are simply living, working, eating, arguing, praying, and raising their children. And their days are quietly measured by the railway, the morning train, the evening train, sound of a steel and steam becoming part of everyday life. Sometimes freedom is something remarkably ordinary. Knowing where you belong, knowing who your neighbors are, being able to sit down for a meal without wondering if the person across the table is secretly your enemy. And then partition begins. And that ordinary freedom becomes fragile. The transformation does not happen overnight. Fear arrives gradually. A robbery, an arrest, rumors, news from elsewhere, stories of violence, and information begins traveling faster than the truth. That's one of the most unsettling things about the novel, because hatred rarely begins with the truth. It often begins with the uncertainty. What happened? Who did it? Who can we trust? And then someone supplies an answer, a simple answer, an answer that gives fear a face. And once a fear has the face, it becomes much easier to hate. This is where Train to Pakistan stops feeling like a novel about 1947, because we have all seen smaller versions of this mechanism. Someone becomes a label before they remain a person. A rumor becomes more believable than a relationship. And suddenly, the neighbor you knew becomes the stranger you were always warned about. Mr. Singh doesn't preach about this. He simply lets us watch it unfold. Then we meet Iqbal. He's educated, articulate, political. He has theories about society, injustice, and change. He can explain the problem. He can analyze it. But Mr. Singh quietly asks, what happens when the world stops behaving like an argument? And then there is Jagga, rough, impulsive, a village goon. Not the person you would necessarily expect to make a choice that challenges everything around him. Yet Mr. Singh refuses to make morality that simple. Educated person doesn't automatically do the right thing. The respectable person doesn't automatically do the right thing. And the criminal doesn't automatically fail to do it. Because when circumstances become extreme, character is revealed in places we don't always expect. And then there is the train. At first, it's simply a part of life, a sound in the distance, marker of a time, something extremely ordinary. But as the partition deepens, the trains begin carrying the consequences of what is happening around them. The same railway system that once connected places becomes part of a landscape of separation. The train becomes a reminder that history can take something completely ordinary and make it most terrifying. Eventually, the story reaches the moment where an individual has to make a choice. I won't tell you what happens, because the question the ending leaves behind is not who is right or which community was good. It's much harder. When everyone around you has chosen a side, can you still choose to remain human? Sometimes morality is not about winning. Sometimes it's about deciding what you are unwilling to become. And this is where the book became personal for me. What stayed with me was not the violence, it was the intimacy. Partition happened between people who had lived beside one another: neighbors, friends, families, people who have shared food, people who knew whose child was getting married, people who knew which house made the best food. And then something changed. People who once shared food began sharing suspicion instead. It's easy to look back at 1947 and ask, how could people have done that? But Train to Pakistan quietly removes that comfortable distance and asks, would you have done any better? Not because we are secretly terrible people, but because none of us knows exactly who we would become under the circumstances we have never experienced. Fear changes people. Crowds change people. Loss changes people. And certainty can be dangerous when it arrives precisely when we most needed the curiosity. We can be politically free and still be prisoners of fear. We can be free from one kind of authority and still surrender ourselves to another. Rumor, tribal identity, collective anger, and most importantly, the need to belong somewhere. Perhaps one of the hardest forms of freedom is the freedom to say, I don't know. I don't really know what happened. I don't know if the story is true. I don't know what that person believes. I don't know what I would have done. And perhaps, most importantly, I don't know enough to stop seeing another human being as human. That, for me, is what Train to Pakistan ultimately becomes. Not simply a book about partition, a book about the distance between what we believe we could do and what circumstances might actually ask of us. Courage sounds simple when we are imagining it from a safe distance. Real courage is actually quieter. Sometimes it's refusing to repeat a rumor. Sometimes it's protecting someone who has suddenly become unpopular. Sometimes it's refusing to let someone else's hatred become the hatred of your own. And sometimes it's simply looking at another person and remembering before you become a label, you were just a person. So perhaps this Independence Day, we can ask not only what freedom gave us, but what freedom asks of us. Freedom to think before we hate. Freedom to question the story everyone is telling us. Freedom to see a person before we see their identity. And the freedom to make our own moral choice even when the crowd has already made theirs. Countries are built through laws, borders, and institutions, but the everyday experience of freedom is built much closer to home, at dining table, in the neighborhood, in the way we speak about people who are different from us, in the stories we believe, in the choices we make when fear walks into the room. Train to Pakistan doesn't give us easy answer. It leaves us with something harder, a mirror, and perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all. Would we have done any better? This Independence Day, perhaps we can celebrate freedom in a way we usually do, with the flag, with the music, with the memories, with the gratitude for everything that came before us and for everyone who made the freedom possible. But perhaps we can also sit quietly for a moment and ask what freedom asks of us now. Not just freedom from, but freedom to think, to question, to listen, to resist the fear, and when circumstances make it difficult, to remember the human being standing on the other side. Maybe that's what Train to Pakistan left me with. Not an answer, a responsibility. And with that, me Nikhil, signing off. I will meet you again soon with another book, another quiet conversation, and another cup of coffee. Until then, take care of yourself. If you get some value from this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Share this video with a fellow reader and keep turning the page. I thank you very much for your time. Jai Hind.